Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Barbell Life Podcast with your host, Coach Travis Smash. Super excited to be doing this. I absolutely love my life, and thank God I've got the partners I have that allow me to just spend so much time researching and creating content that will help all of you guys, especially you coaches and athletes out there trying to get better at what you do. Today, we're going to be talking about Olympic weightlifting and derivatives of such, talking about snatch, clean, the jerk, and we're talking about how that is it or is it not good for athletic performance. So before we get too into it, I just want to say thank you to my partners and sponsors of the show. Of course, Gym Aware. Those guys have been with me since 2020 when I decided to go back to school. Without those guys, I wouldn't be the person I am for sure. Also, so gymware.com for all of your velocity-based training needs. Use code MASH5. And then if you're local to the Triad region of North Carolina, hit me up at Rise Indoor Sports. You can email me, Travis, at Rise Indoor Sports, if you want to just discuss maybe what programs we have. We have Rise Sports Performance here. It's also powered by National League Performance, of course. So if you have any questions, the programs, or just want to come and hang out, learn from me, email me, Travis at Rise Indoor Sports, and we'll get you taken care of. Also want to thank Swift Performance. We have, at Rise, we have the very best timing gates in the whole world. And they're crazy. You can come up with any kind of agility plan that you want and you can time it. I can draw it up on the iPad, and they're the most precise and accurate timing gates in the whole world. And we love them and we thank them. We also have their jump mat, which is basically a baby force plate. They actually have force plates in the jump mat that makes it the most accurate jump mat in the world as well. And we can get the reactive strength index. We can look at, of course, all kinds of jump variations. So thank those guys. And finally, thank you, Shred Mill, for giving us the best, what would you call this, athletic sprinting tool in the world. So for all of you that don't know, Tony Villani is the man who created the Shred Mill. So all of our athletes get to use the Shred Mill, which is going to help them run faster. It allows us to teach them technique while they're actually moving. So it's hard to teach someone to sprint when they're running the 40 because you're not in their ear. But anyway, thanks to those guys. So we're going to get into it now. I don't want to be one of those guys that spends 30 minutes talking about sponsors. That's not why you're listening to this. So, all right. So before you decide, is the Olympic weightlifting movements, are they good for athletic performance? You got to talk about power. We all throw that word out there, but sometimes I really wonder if the people who are talking about power understands what it is. So power is a combination of force and velocity, or you can say speed and strength, in layman's terms. And so you got, if you have someone who is what I would consider a cheetah, they're super fast, but not very strong, they're still not going to be very powerful. But if you have someone who's a gorilla, super strong, but they're slow, they're not going to be powerful either. They're going to be super strong. They can pick up a car, but they're not going to do anything quickly. But if you have that kangaroo, which is what we're all after, that's someone who has the perfect combination of strength and speed. They're going to jump through the roof. They're going to run fast. They're going to accelerate. They're going to hit a baseball out of the park. They're going to jump through the roof in basketball. That's what we're all after. And so if power is a concern in your athletic performance programming, then yes, weightlifting and their derivatives are going to be very important. And so today we're going to talk about, though, first, what are some tests that will determine, what someone should focus on to get more powerful. So we'll talk about that first, and then we'll talk about application of those. Because a lot of times people will talk about doing, even though the clean is you're going to create the most watts of power than any other movement on earth, but people will say, well, the expression of power is not the same thing as improving someone's power. And that couldn't be more false. Because if you understand the principle of specificity, if you want to be powerful, then you should probably be picking up some kind of heavy stuff as fast as you can, creating the most power, because that transfers to training specifically of the velocity that you train now. So yes, it's important. But if I use a test like the dynamic strength index, which is where you look at how much peak force someone is using when they do something like a jump, versus, and you're going to divide that by the peak power they're going to be able to produce when they do a max squat. So you look and see, the squat is telling me, when I do a 1RM maximum squat, that's telling me how much force production I can create. However, the jump, how much I'm using when I jump, is going to see how much of that availability am I using when I do something ballistic. So what you would do is you would do a counter movement jump, divide that by the peak force you're doing, you're creating when you do a maximum squat, and it gives you an index. And from that index, I can decide, should I have this athlete, focus on speed? Should I have them focus on strength, getting strong? Or should I have them doing some type of concurrent training, a little bit of both? And so it's a great test. We use it all the time. GymWare allows us to test that. It actually makes the cloud portion of the that you use with GymWare is a great tool to figure out the dynamic strength of an athlete. So a specific example, Ryan Grimsland, we were able to get his DSI score. So what he did, he produced 3,934 newtons when he performed his vertical leap, his counter movement jump, 41 inches. And he was able to produce 6,085 newtons when he did his 1RM back squat. So when you take the 3,934 newtons, divide that by 6,085, you get DSI at 0.65, which is perfect. So now let me give you an idea, once you perform this test. And by the way, GymWare will automatically log those newtons. So a DSI of 0.8 or greater, then you just need to focus on getting stronger, because that person is using every ounce of force capability that they have when they do something ballistic. If you are at 0.6 to 0.8, which is where Ryan was, then concurrent training. So you want to get strong, you want to do some jumping, but then make sure you're expressing power with your cleans, of course, because he's a weightlifter. So, but then if your DSI is less than 0.6, focus on plyometrics and stress speed. So you don't really need to focus too much on absolute or accelerated strength anymore. It doesn't mean you can't do some of it, but your priority becomes getting faster and more explosive. Now, the other test I would recommend would be like the 1RM prediction, and it's super easy. All you do is work up, make sure you do this in ascending order. So starting with something that would be more in that starting strength, quality of strength, like 20% of your 1RM, and slowly work up. I'll work up to 0.5 or 0.4. I wouldn't go much lower than 0.4 if you're working with an athlete. If it's a strength athlete, maybe you can go a little bit heavier. But you don't need to go to a true 1RM to failure, because number one, the risk of that. Unless you're a powerlifter, then by all means you need to go heavy. But do the 1RM prediction, and what will happen, as long as you had at least 5 different lifts, 5 at different ascending intensities, and it's automatically calculated by the GymWare cloud. So you just choose it. The other cool feature of the 1RM prediction, it will show you where you created your maximum wattage, your maximum power. And based on the research, this is from Brian Mann, and I'll make sure that I reference his work, somewhere around 60% or around 0.83 meters per second is where you want your peak force, because that will be, peak power, because that will be power that's used in the field of play. Because if you're producing your peak power at a slower velocity, which some strong people do, then that's not very functional power production, because things happen at a higher rate in athletics if you're jumping or running or tackling somebody. So 60% seems to be the proper place. So both of those will give you a good idea of where you're at and decide like what you need to become powerful. Now that you know where you are you the athlete that needs to get stronger? Are you to get more explosive? The common theme, no matter what it is spending quality time in that strength, speed, strength world. that's going to help you become more powerful because you're expressing that power. And the more power you're able to create at those higher rates, and the more force you're able to produce at those higher rates, the more powerful you are. Simple as that. So why clean? Why clean or snatch? Because the following are naturally occurring. You're going to get better at starting strength. That means that you're going from that static position. I mean, the nature of, a clean or a snatch is that you get really good at going from a static position to a very dynamic, explosive movement. And so those are what you're getting good at is you're getting really good at recruiting high threshold motor units as fast as possible and faster than anyone else, and calling upon those and creating that synchronization with those motor units to explode. You're also going to get good at acceleration because by nature of the clean, if you don't accelerate, then you're not going to get the lift. You have to go faster to where once you're in that power position and you explode up, that is where you create the most velocity and the most power throughout the entire movement. So acceleration is key. If I move like a deadlift and I kind of move at one speed and then I, at the last second, try to move faster, it's going to be too late. You've got to learn to accelerate throughout that whole movement. And you also get better at rate of force production. And what I mean by that is rate of force development, I guess I should have said, but going from zero into reaching your peak force, that time gets faster and faster and faster, but just by the nature of you trying to get better at the movements. So that's a good thing. So what about reactive ability? So what I mean by that is, getting good at going from static to dynamic is a good trait. You think about sprinting, think about doing a jump ball or something like that. But what about reactive ability? So like in a counter movement jump, you go down and up. And so you're relying on the stretch shortening cycle, those muscle spindles and GTOs, the tendons, the connective tissue, all the things that resist stretch, you're relying on to jump higher. So when you do a hang clean or a hang snatch, then you're also going to get really good at, number one, your tendons, your connective tissue, that's going to grow and get stronger. And your ability, that stretch shortening cycle is going to get more efficient. Your muscle spindles are going to produce more and more passive force that you don't even have to worry about. Not to mention when you catch a clean or a snatch in the bottom, you'll watch a great weightlifter will catch a clean and pop right out of the bottom. We call it catching the bounce. But what they're getting good at is that bottom stretch shortening cycle. Those tendons are getting incredible. Their ability to resist stretch is probably better than anyone's in that bottom of the squat position. You're also in that bottom of the squat, you're going to get really improve your reactive abilities and those physiological components that make up your reactive ability. When you're in the bottom of catching a clean in the bottom of a clean, your ankles, your knees, they're getting stronger. So that patella tendon is getting thicker and stronger and able to absorb that force. When you're doing a hang clean, your hip is going to get really good because, it's more of a hip hinge, a little bit of knee extension, but the range of motion is taking place more at the hip. And so as the hamstrings and as the glutes cross the hips, those tendons, that stretch shortening cycle is going to get more and more efficient. So either way, you're getting, whether you're talking about starting strength, static to dynamic, or reactive properties, they're all improving when you're doing Olympic weightlifting. So, and then specificity, force application at a specific joint angle. Talk about when, if I want my athlete to jump higher, you look at the joint angles that where they're squatting down to jump as high as they possibly can. Or if you want them to get stronger at, a greater joint angle because they're, or less of a range of motion, I'll say sprinting. So what I'm trying to say is think about when your foot strikes the ground at max velocity or the transition phase of sprinting. Regardless of the angle, you can target those joint angles by doing a hang clean from the power position. So there's very little bend at the knees and hips or mid-thigh. You can target whichever joint angle that you want to target. If you want to work on that concentric, say like think about when someone's doing a jump ball. If you want to get really good, or a linebacker's in a linebacker position and they explode to make a tackle. So it's going to be more of doing a hang clean or hang snatch from that mid-thigh position. So you can target whatever joint angle you want, and you can get very specific with your force application. So now there's a few things too. Let me say this. What if what if you don't feel very good about teaching the Olympic movements? Does that make you a bad coach? No. I would recommend that everybody learns that, but you can use weightlifting derivatives to do just about everything that I've talked about. The only thing that you wouldn't get, if you're doing, say you're doing a clean pull, or you're doing a snatch pull, you're not going to get that those improved reactive ability by catching the clean in the bottom, but you'll get the same ability to absorb force if you do, say you do a hang clean, a clean pull, as long as you extend and then make sure that then you stabilize. Don't just drop the bar, because then you'll get that same force absorption. It won't be in the same place. When you catch a clean on the shoulders, it's probably going to be displaced. That force will be displaced more in the torso and probably the spinal erectors, but you'll still get that force absorption at the ankle, the knees, and the hips. So if you can't do it, and there's a Dr. Sukamel who's done tons of studies. I'll try to make sure that I link his research with weightlifting derivatives. You can create lots and lots of power, and you can really be precise with your force application with derivatives too. So, and even weightlifters, we use derivatives as well. So we still do snatch pulls, clean pulls, hang snatch pulls, hang clean pulls from the power, from the knee. So wherever I need to target and want them to improve on their ability to produce force, and at a very high rate, that is. So some things I want to also say too, let's say outside of just getting better at power production, just getting better at your ability to produce force specifically, but there are several cognitive improvements from weightlifting or from resistance training in general. So this is a lot for your parents, for you parents, and maybe some of the coaches out there that care about this. But there is some really recent research that would say that especially the more complex your resistance training is. So this is going to be this is going to give doing the full movement, like snatch or clean, a little bit more of a benefit over the derivatives. But what I'm saying is you're going to get cognitive improvements precisely in the frontal cortex. That's where you do all your executive functions. So any type of like planning, overcoming some type of obstacle in your life, that's where the CEO or the leader on the team, that's going to improve. Also, they've noticed that hippocampus, actually a lot of neuroplasticity as it relates to the hippocampus. So actually increasing in the number of brain cells in the hippocampus region, that's where you learn, and that's memory. And then studies have shown increases of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF for short, but that is that is actually the cause of neuroplasticity, or I guess you would say the steroids for the brains. But also myokines are produced during strength training, which is where your muscles are able to communicate with the other parts of your body, and one being the brain. So it's a good thing. And the more complex it is, the better it is. So doesn't mean that derivatives won't help as well. It's just, it appears that the more complex it is, the little bit better it is. So just a shout out for the full motion. Now, ways to measure, because just doing a clean or just doing a clean pull or whatever is one thing. But if you're not measuring, like, you're missing out on a lot of the benefits. Number one, there's no way that you're ensuring your athlete is going to be utilizing compensatory acceleration, which is where you want to be trying to accelerate throughout the entire movement when you do any kind of exercise. So, but by measuring, using velocity, using gym wear, I suggest, But here are some of the specific ways. Instead of just saying, hey, I want to up your 1RM, think about doing things like percentage of body weight, 90 to 110%, and move it faster. So, by the way, too, think about this, that, a clean is normally about 68% of a max power clean, that is, of a squat. And a max clean is about 75% of the squat. And earlier, I told you really want to get really good at producing your maximum power right around 60%. Well, by nature, when you're doing your reps, that's where you're going to be. When you're doing power cleans, you're going to be doing 60% of what you would be back squatting and moving it super fast. Once again, remember just the nature of the Olympic lifts. It was Verkhoshansky that said that when someone gets good at the Olympic lifts, weightlifting movements, they are going to tend to defy what we have as scientists have established as the relationship between force and velocity, meaning the heavier you go, the slower it moves. Well, a lot of times it's, I've even lately been looking at, for several of my weightlifters, we weren't doing a ton of velocity with snatching and clean and jerking, but I have of late, just because I'm trying to get, and with the help of Dr. Sucramel, I think that we're getting really close to better ways of using velocity with the Olympic lifts. But what I'm noticing is a lot of times the velocity doesn't change, 60%, 70%, 80%, all the way up to almost 90%. They're maintaining the same velocity. So the weight gets heavier and nothing's changing. So that's a good thing. That means that is the essence of power. So another thing you might want to consider is the measuring the eccentric velocity of a hang clean, because the faster you're able to go on the way down and then come up, then the more of an impact is going to be to the stress shortening cycle. The tendons are going to get stronger and thicker. So those reactive elements, properties of your body are going to get better. And it's a very good thing. And you can do that, with, you talk about doing the hang clean, hang snatch from above the knee to the knee, below the knee, from the, mid thigh, and get better at turning that around. The amortization phase is going down. And so you can measure whether you just have, we have, GymWare has the flex units, which are very affordable. They also have the, the RS units, which is a lot of the universities and some high schools are using those. But even with the flex units, which I use, and a lot of people who train on their own, they also measure eccentric velocity and time. So it's a good thing to measure. But we too, with using derivatives, what I would say is get specific, look at, how fast can someone do a clean pull with 90% of their body weight, 100, 110, 115, all the way up, with a clean pull, 150, even, double body weight. How fast can they pull that? Some people, plenty of weightlifters can pull a double body weight clean pull super fast because they're clean and jerking more than that. So getting better and faster at loads at or around or slightly above your body weight, that is what you want to become, powerful in a very relative way, meaning how does one move their body weight? So the faster they get at moving those loads, the faster and then more powerful and, the more eccentric control they have of their body. So anyway, so what is the verdict? Man, use the Olympic lifts. You're crazy. You express power. Express the most amount of power you can in your training. The Olympic lifts are by far the best way to express it, or the way, or doing derivatives of the Olympic lifts. So. Okay, guys, before you go, make sure that you go check out the link in my bio and join the online team. Whether you want to get better at weightlifting, powerlifting, if you want to get better at, you're an adult, you want to get more fit like I am, that's one. Super Total. We have something for if you're an athlete, if you're a basketball player, football player. We have plans where we can be very specific with whatever sport. We have some that are going to be very good athletic development plans. There's going to be rotation. There's going to be power. There's going to be speed. There's going to be strength. There's actually speed, sprint work. There's jumping, plyometrics. Anyway, but we can, regardless of which option you choose, we can make some changes. But if you want us to get really in depth and we want to, dial that thing in, there's an option for that. There's an option for both. We're going to crush it no matter what you do. And if you get one of the individualized plans, you get a flex unit with it. So that's a good thing as well. Check out our ebooks. The way this show is free, and I'm going to kill this from now on, week to week. But and I'm going to continue to develop free content. But the way you support us is by hopefully buying and appreciating some of the products we make. I appreciate MasterLead.com for if you want an online team, ebooks. There's programs on there. There's free content for days, free workouts if you dig in there. There's so much information. Go there, support us. If you're local to the Triad region, Rise Indoor Sports, come see me, riseindoorsports.com. Email me, Travis at Rise Indoor Sports. If you are interested or have questions about velocity-based training, you can email me, Travis at gymwear.com. And of course, if you want anything velocity-based training, go to gymwear.com. Use code MASH5. And Swift Performance, thank you so much for partnering and giving us the best timing gates in the world, as well as the best jump mat that's ever been created. It's crazy. We're coming out with some new content for that next week to show you guys just all the cool things that we can measure with that. And Shred Mill, thank you for making our athletes incredibly fast. Thank you, guys.